everything shifted because I understood chronic inflammation is the root cause. I have to address that if I want the shift in everything else. Hello and welcome to the Inflammation Code podcast. It's me, your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I have an exciting episode for you today. This is a solo episode, and we're going to go into different ways to look at our health that you may not have thought about before. So let's kick off with a story. I want you to imagine that you're standing on the deck of a cruise ship in Alaska. Have you ever been on one of those? I have not been on one yet in this life, but I definitely plan on doing an Alaskan cruise at some point. And so just imagine you're cruising through these pristine waters. You're surrounded by massive glaciers. You're watching humpback whales breach the water in the distance. You're seeing sea otters floating along on their backs. You're watching all this beauty around you. And then you see it. You see this stunning piece of ice that's rising out of the water. It's brilliant. It's white. It's blue. It's catching the light. Maybe it's 30 to 40 feet tall. It's absolutely breathtaking. But here's what the ship's captain and team can't tell you. That part of that iceberg is only the visible part. That's only 10% of what's actually there. The other 90%, the massive foundation that's keeping it afloat, is hidden beneath the surface. Silent, powerful, driving everything that you see above the water. Here's the thing. Your symptoms work exactly the same way. That joint pain that you feel every morning, that's the tip. The exhaustion that won't quit no matter how much you sleep, that's the tip. The brain fog, the bloating, the mood swings, all tips. What's below the surface is the thing that's actually driving all of it. And that's inflammation. And here's the problem. Most doctors are only treating what's above the waterline because that's what we're showing them. They're giving you ibuprofen for the joint pain because that's what we walked in complaining about. They're prescribing sleeping pills for the insomnia because that's the struggle. They're handing you antacids for the digestion. But they're not diving below the surface to see what's actually creating all of these symptoms. On my podcast, I love diving into these topics so we can understand ourselves better. That's why this podcast is called The Inflammation Code. And today, we're going below the waterline. We're going to really look at what happens once you see the full iceberg. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that is when our real healing can begin. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge something. If you're listening and you've been to multiple doctors with multiple symptoms and you keep hearing, everything's normal, I see you. You're not imagining it. You're not a hypochondriac. Your body is trying to tell you something. And today we're going to decode that message. I'm going to share a quick story with you guys. I worked after college. I went to business school. I studied social entrepreneurship because I was going to change the world and do it through business. My first job was at Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires. And I worked in a department called program coordinating. And in that department, I would sit there day after day, and the person who checked into Canyon Ranch, who's paying a couple grand for a couple days to heal themselves, they would always show up after some huge life transition. Cancer diagnosis, divorce, huge job change, life change of some sort, tragedy in their lives, maybe a death. And they would always say, I really need help with my health. And I've already been to 10 doctors and I'm already taking 10 medications. Is there any way to get some help here? I heard you have a doctor who can help. And so it was 2003. I had just graduated undergrad. And Dr. Mark Hyman was at Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires. And he was doing lectures. He was doing full consultations. And I remember meeting with those people afterwards. And they'd say, wow, I've never had a doctor who sat with me for 45 minutes and listened. I never had someone who actually heard everything and was able to say, hey, I think there's one root cause issue here. Let's see what's the one thing triggering all of this. And so it's been well over 20 years of me understanding not just the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, but the power of functional medicine and the power of understanding what that one root cause is. I love understanding what it is and then addressing it with lifestyle. But we have to understand first that we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. We're only seeing the inflammaging symptoms, as I call them, the inflammation that makes us feel like we're aging. And we're not looking under the hood or under the iceberg in this case at the much deeper level of what's happening. And so that's always been the investigative journalist hat that I wear. When people come to me, all I'm trying to do is calibrate, what is it? What is it? And the thing is, root cause implies there's one cause. We now understand in root cause medicine, it's usually not one cause. It's usually a few things or the interplay of multiple things. But it's powerful to understand what that is so we can address it. And so today we're going to dive into what are these truths that we need to understand so that we can get to the level of health that we deserve, that we want to have. So first, I need to share something with you. Something that might be uncomfortable to hear, but it's crucial that you understand this and you understand the stakes. Because right now in our country, chronic disease isn't the exception, it's becoming the norm. 1 in 2 men will develop cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 3 women will develop cancer. More than 37 million Americans have diabetes. That's more than 1 in 10 people. And another 96 million adults have prediabetes. Altogether, that's nearly half the country. 6 in 10 Americans, that's 3 in 5 Americans, live with at least one chronic disease. 4 in 10 have 2 or more. Listen to that statistic. Do you have a friend group of 5 women? I do. My 5 girls who I love to hang out with, who I'm usually too busy to hang with. 3 in 5 will live with at least one chronic disease. That's already true. That happens already, autoimmunity in women. And the fact that we're not taking this seriously, 1 in 2, 1 in 3, do you know how insane that is? Between you and your bestie, between you and your best friend who's a guy. I just think we need to understand that this is like the entire house is on fire and we're just standing watching it. Instead of grabbing a fire extinguisher, a fire truck, a hydrant, a fire blanket, like everything on earth we should be doing to turn off the fire. And instead we're just standing and watching it burn. And I think that's insane. And when we talk about inflammation, we're talking about heart disease, autoimmune conditions, metabolic disorders, chronic inflammatory diseases. And these aren't just statistics. They're our mothers, our sisters, our colleagues, our friends. And here's what most people don't realize. These diseases do not just disappear overnight, nor do they appear overnight. And they don't start with a diagnosis. They start with all these different symptoms. And they're the same symptoms that you might be experiencing right now. The fatigue that won't quit, the digestive issues you've just learned to deal with, the joint pain that you blame on getting older, the brain fog that you attribute to stress, the weight you can't lose no matter what you try. These are your body's early warning signs. And as we transition through our 30s, 40s, and beyond, wondering, do we have this thing called perimenopause or menopause? We aren't getting clear answers or support because our blood work looks fine. But what we're dealing with these 50 changes to our mood, our brain, our body, our waistline, our energy, focus, memory, skin, our hairline, the list goes on and on. We're feeling it. And God, don't I wish HRT and a GLP-1 was enough to solve all our life problems? That would be amazing. Unfortunately, it isn't, as I'm sure you likely already know, because what's beneath almost all of these symptoms, what's driving the statistic that I just shared, what's happening during these transitions that makes everything feel like we're falling apart is chronic systemic inflammation. That's the iceberg that we are diving into today. Because if we can understand inflammation, if we can address it before it becomes disease, then we can literally change the trajectory of our health, the path that we are on. We can become that statistic that doesn't develop the chronic disease. But we have to first see that full iceberg first, the whole thing. So let me take you back to when I first understood this iceberg concept. It was during my years as a road warrior. I was building my supplement company. I was dealing with what I thought were completely separate problems. I had digestive issues, bloating, occasional heartburn. I just kept Tums in my purse back then. I had joint pain in my hands and my wrists. I blamed it on all the driving. I had that bone deep fatigue we talked about. Last week, we talked about this. And I had brain fog that made me forget what I was saying mid-pitch to doctors. My whole job when I built my supplement company was to sit in front of orthopedic surgeons and say, I made this turmeric. I would love for you to carry it. And mid-sentence, mid-pitch, I was forgetting what I was talking about. And I started getting skin rashes on my arms that would come and go. And I was treating each symptom separately. Antacids for digestion, ice packs for my joints, coffee for the fatigue, or in my case, high volumes of green tea, whatever I could find on the road. But here's what I didn't understand then. These weren't 5 different problems. They were one problem showing up in 5 different places. They were all branches of the same root, and that root was chronic systemic inflammation. And once I understood that, once I saw the full iceberg, everything changed. Everything shifted because I understood chronic inflammation is the root cause. I have to address that if I want the shift in everything else. Now, let me tell you about a client named Jessica, because her story shows what happens when no one connects these dots for you. So Jessica came to see me when she was 42. She was a marketing executive, a mother of 2. She looked completely put together on the outside. But she brought me a list, and I mean an actual written list. She had joint pain in her hands and her knees. She had chronic fatigue that no amount of coffee could touch. She had brain fog that was so thick she'd forget what she was saying mid-sentence. She had digestive issues, bloating, constipation, alternating with different issues and struggles. She had insomnia despite being exhausted. She had anxiety. She had recently skin rashes that kept appearing. And she'd been to 5 different doctors over the years. Her rheumatologist gave her anti-inflammatories for the joint pain. Her gastroenterologist gave her PPIs for the digestion. Her dermatologist gave her steroid cream for the rash. Her psychiatrist suggested anxiety medication. Her primary care doctor told her to sleep more and stress less, work out more and eat less. And Jessica looked at me completely exhausted. And she said, I'm doing everything they're telling me. So why do I feel worse? And here's what no one had told her. All of those symptoms, they weren't separate problems. They were one problem showing up in different places. So I drew her a picture, an iceberg. And I said, everything you listed just now, that's what's above the water. And that's what everyone can see. But beneath the surface, there's something much bigger driving all of it. And for the first time in 3 years, something clicked for her. She said, so you're telling me I don't even have 7 different problems? I have one problem showing up in 7 different ways? Exactly. And that reframe changed everything for her. Because once you see the iceberg, you stop trying to chisel away at the tip. You start addressing what's going on underneath. And so let's break this down. Because understanding what inflammation actually is and what it does is crucial to understanding why you feel the way that you do. What is inflammation really? At its most basic level, inflammation is your immune system's response to a perceived threat. Cut your finger, inflammation rushes in to heal it. Catch a cold, Inflammation is part of your immune response fighting the infection. Twist your ankle. Inflammation prevents further damage and starts repair. Acute inflammation is your body's brilliant, life-saving defense system. The problem is when inflammation becomes chronic, when the threat never goes away, or when your body thinks that the threat has never ever gone away and this inflammation becomes your new baseline. And that's when the symptoms start to stack. So let me show you what's actually happening. Above the waterline, you feel those symptoms we've talked about: joint pain, joint stiffness in the morning, chronic fatigue, poor concentration, brain fog, digestive problems, irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, gas, skin issues like eczema and rashes and acne, non-restorative sleep or insomnia. It could be mood changes like anxiety, irritability, depression. Could be weight gain, especially around the middle. Could be frequent colds and infections. But what's happening below the waterline? What's actually happening is your gut lining becomes compromised. In Ayurveda, we understand that the gut is the seat of all health or disease. And so when your gut lining is damaged, we call it leaky gut in modern terms. What happens is this: your gut lining should be like a tightly woven screen, letting nutrients through while keeping out toxins and undigested food particles. But when it's compromised by stress, poor diet, medications, or chronic inflammation, it becomes permeable. So now your undigested food particles, your bacteria, and your toxins are leaking into your bloodstream. And your immune system sees these particles as invaders. Your immune system wasn't designed to see food proteins in your bloodstream. So when it does, it treats them like viruses or like bacteria. It attacks, it creates antibodies. It triggers this inflammatory response. And here's the thing: this isn't happening once. It's happening multiple times a day, after every meal, for months or years. That inflammation becomes systemic. So once inflammation is in your bloodstream, it travels everywhere. It affects your joints, causing that pain, that stiffness. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, causing brain fog and mood changes. It damages your mitochondria, causing that fatigue. It disrupts your hormones, affecting your sleep, your weight, your mood. And it keeps your stress response activated, elevating cortisol, which makes everything worse. And so this loop just starts to perpetuate itself. We end up in this catch-22 because that elevated cortisol disrupts your sleep and your blood sugar. The poor sleep will prevent your cellular repair. Then your joints ache and your brain can't clear its metabolic waste. The chronic inflammation depletes your nutrient reserves, your magnesium, B vitamins, zinc, which affects your mood, energy, and your immune function. So your body becomes less sensitive to its own regulatory system, to your own regulatory signals, and that inflammation just keeps looping again and again and again. So see how it all connects? You don't have 10 separate problems. You have one root problem with 10 different expressions. And here's what most people miss. You can keep treating the symptoms above the waterline forever. You can take the Advil for the pain, the melatonin for the sleep, the probiotic for the gut, the caffeine for the fatigue. But if you're not addressing what's beneath the chronic inflammation that's driving it all, you're just managing symptoms. The iceberg is still there. In Ayurveda, we have a saying: treating symptoms without addressing the root cause is like pulling weeds without removing the roots. They'll just grow back. And Western medicine often focuses on suppressing inflammation, which sometimes is super necessary and super life-saving. But suppressing it isn't the same as resolving it. We need to ask, why is the inflammation there in the first place? That's what addressing the root means. We have to get to the bottom of things. So back to Jessica. Once we identified inflammation as the root cause, we didn't try to fix 7 things at once. We focused on one thing. calming the system-wide inflammation. And here's what we did. Step 1, I mapped out her elemental design. I mapped out for her where her elemental design is her unique constitution based on the 5 elements. Jessica was predominantly a fire type, which meant inflammation was going to show up in her skin and digestive system first. This wasn't random. In Ayurveda, we understand that different elemental types will manifest imbalance in different ways. For Jessica, her fire element, when out of balance, was literally creating heat and inflammation in her body. Step 2, we aligned her life to the circadian clock from Ayurveda. I helped her align her life to the natural rhythms of the day, when to eat, when to rest, when to be active, based on the circadian clock that Ayurveda has understood for thousands of years. This meant eating her largest meal at midday when her digestive fire is the strongest, going to bed before 10 p.m. during the calming Gupta time, avoiding cold, raw foods that would dampen her digestive capacity. Step number 3, we spoke about diet and self-care. We spoke about how to align Ayurvedic habits into her life. Warm, cooked foods instead of cold and raw, spices like cumin, coriander, and fennel to support digestion and reduce inflammation. We talked about removing foods that were aggravating to her fire element, especially spicy, fried, and overly processed foods. We used Ayurvedic herbs that were specific to her constitution to calm inflammation and support her digestive fire. And then we supported her body's natural anti-inflammatory pathways. We introduced curcumin, my favorite, but not the cheap stuff from the grocery store. This matters more than most people realize. Curcumin is the active compound in turmeric, and it's one of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatories that we have from Mother Nature. But most turmeric supplements don't work because curcumin has very poor bioavailability. Your body can't absorb it on its own. That's why formulation matters. You need curcumin paired with black pepper extract, piperin, to enhance the absorption by up to 2,000%. You also need to pay attention to how that curcumin is extracted and if it'll actually be effective. So that's a really big differentiation that most people pay no attention to. And I gave her adaptogens like ashwagandha, which in Ayurveda we call a rasayana, or a rejuvenative herb, to help regulate her stress response and to calm her nervous system. This is exactly why I designed adaptogenic teas, to make ancient herbs accessible and easy to incorporate into our daily lives. Step number 5, we built a daily rhythm. In Ayurveda, we call this dinacharya, the daily routine. Your body thrives on rhythm and predictability. So Jessica's morning ritual became warm lemon water to stimulate digestion and cleanse the system. 10 minutes of breath work to activate her parasympathetic nervous system. Her supplements, her meals, eaten at consistent times in a calm environment. No eating while stressed or distracted because that shuts down digestion. Her evening ritual, calming herbal tea with Ayurvedic herbs, self-massage with warm oil, no screens 30 minutes before bed. Nothing extreme, nothing overwhelming, just consistent daily signals to her body that said, you're safe, you can heal now. This is what I do with all my clients. I sit with them and customize a plan based on their primary and secondary elemental design. This is the ancient wisdom's treasure, a deep knowledge about us based on the 5 elements. Within 2 weeks, Jessica's digestion started improving. The bloating decreased significantly. Within a month, her brain fog lifted. She could think clearly again. She could finish sentences. She could focus during her meetings. Within 3 months, her joint pain was 70% better. And joint pain, that's my specialty. I've been hitting that one out of the park for a decade now. Her energy was back. Her anxiety had lifted. And she'd worked with her doctors to wean off 3 of her 5 medications. At our 6-month follow-up, she told me something I'll never forget. I spent 3 years thinking my body was broken. I had 7 different diagnoses from 7 different specialists. But my body wasn't broken. It was screaming for help, and no one was listening to what it was actually saying. She didn't need 7 solutions. She needed 1 root cause solution. And that's the power of seeing the full iceberg. So imagine this. 6 months from now, you're having coffee with a friend who's going through what you used to go through. She's exhausted, in pain, seeing multiple doctors, getting nowhere. And she says to you, I just don't understand why my body is doing this to me. And you smile, not because it's funny, but because you recognize where she is. You say your body isn't doing this to you. It's trying to communicate with you. You tell her about the iceberg. You explain how all her symptoms might be connected to 1 root cause. And you share how you addressed inflammation instead of just treating symptoms. And you watch her face change the way yours did when you first understood this. Because now you're the one who sees it. You understand that when your energy dips, it's not laziness. It's a signal that something needs support. When your digestion acts up, it's not random. It's connected to stress, food choices, and gut health. When your mood shifts, it's not weakness. It's your body responding to inflammation. You've learned to see below the waterline. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. That's not a burden, that's power. Because now you know what to address. So let me leave you with some key points from today. Your symptoms are not separate problems. They're different expressions of the same root cause. That root cause is almost always inflammation. Point number 2, inflammation isn't the enemy. It's communication. Your body is trying to tell you something is out of balance. The question isn't, how do I make this go away? It's actually, what is my body trying to tell me so I can fix this? And point number 3, treating symptoms without addressing the root cause is like chiseling away the tip of an iceberg. You might get temporary relief, but the problem below still remains. And point number 4, when you address inflammation at the root, everything above the waterline starts to shift. This is why healing can feel miraculous, because you're finally addressing what's actually driving your symptoms. So here's your homework this week. Step number 1, make your symptom list. Write down everything that's been showing up for you. Everything, good and bad. Don't edit yourself. Step number 2, look for patterns. Do certain symptoms show up together after certain foods, during stressful times, when you don't sleep well? Step number 3, reframe your perspective. Instead of seeing these as separate problems, ask yourself, what if all of these are connected? What if there's one root cause beneath them all? And step number 4, choose one anti-inflammatory action this week. It could be removing one inflammatory food. You can start with sugar or gluten. Adding one anti-inflammatory food, like blueberries or leafy greens or fermented vegetables. Taking 10 minutes for deep breathing or gentle movement, like a walk in nature. I call those my circadian walks. Starting a high-quality, properly formulated anti-inflammatory supplement, like turmeric. One action below the waterline. And if you want to kickstart this right now today, I've created a free 7-day inflammation detox challenge. It's at 7dayinflammationdetox.com. It's 7 days of simple Ayurvedic-based practices to calm inflammation in your body immediately. Now, if you're looking at your symptom list and you're thinking, I need help connecting these dots, I do offer these free discovery calls and I do practitioner sessions where we can investigate what's happening in your body and create a personal plan based on your unique elemental design. You can learn more about that at shivanigupta.com, my name. Because while these principles that I'm sharing apply broadly, your body is unique. And sometimes you need someone who can help you see your specific iceberg. Next week, we're diving into something that's going to shift how you see your body entirely. The connected body, why your gut, brain, energy are all talking to each other. Because once you understand how everything in your body is in constant communication, you'll never look at your symptoms in isolation ever again. Until then, look beneath the surface and remember, you're not broken. You're just seeing the tip of your own iceberg. It's time to dive deeper so you can feel the way you want to feel and the way you deserve to feel. I'll see you guys next week on the podcast. Stay well. For more information on the podcast, you can visit shivanigupta.com and all the episodes are there, or they're on any platform where you find your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, etc. If you are a follower of my podcast, please leave a review. Those reviews help us get this wisdom out into the world, out in front of more people who can benefit